Okay, so I'm recording the class as usual, so we could we'll have it up on my YouTube channel. I put the YouTube channel link within the WhatsApp group. So anything that I do, I record and I put it into that YouTube channel now, so you can go back there and you can view everything that we are doing. Right now in this session, we'll be looking at the corrections for 2012, that'll be June 2012, paper 1, right, which is the multiple choice. We're going to be looking at those solutions. So, of course, if you guys are here having any challenges as you go along, you can just unmute yourself and ask a question. All right, and if there's any background noise from your side, right, you're just organized to keep it down to a level by muting yourself, okay? All right, so let's look at the paper here. And it's 2012, June, paper 1. Now the first question here, let me just enlarge the screen slightly. Right. First question here was the number 3.14063 written correct to 3 decimal places, right? So we're looking at 3 decimal places, meaning we're starting from this point here, here, and you're counting 3 decimal places. So that's 1, 2, 3, right? So if I look over here, that'll be 1, 2, 3. So you're looking at the 0 for 3 decimal places. Now we have to decide if to leave it at 0 or if we have to increase it by 1. In order to determine if we have to increase it by 1, we simply look to the next digit on the right? Or the first digit to the right of that 0. And if that digit is 5 or more, then the 0 has to go up by 1. So when we look at the digit to the right of the 0, it is 6. And 6 is 5 or more. It's actually more than 5. So what is going to happen is that this 0 has to increase by 1. So it goes to 1 here. So the answer, therefore, to 3 decimal places would be 3.141, right? And that, if you look, that is option B. That's option B. So, they normally start off pretty easy, so we can get an easy mark. And so the answer there is 3.141. All right, you guys okay with that? I'm hoping if you have an issue, you just simply unmute and you can ask a question. All right. If not, I just move down to the next one. All right. So in the next one, they say express 0.12 as a fraction in its lowest term. Now, so we write down the 0.12, and to convert a decimal to a fraction, what we do is we write back the decimal. So if it is 0.12, we write the 12 on top. We put a line like this, which is actually known as the vernaculum, right, in the fraction. And you divide this now by, firstly, where the point is, you put a 1 for that. And the number of digits to the right of the point, you place zeros. So there are 2 digits, 1, 2. Therefore, you place 2 zeros here, 1, 2, right? Then we have the fraction, but we have to put it in its lowest terms. So in its lowest terms look for common factors of 12 and 100, factors being numbers that could go into 12 and 100 without leaving any remainders, and divide both the numerator and the denominator by those common factors. So what we see is a common factor of 12 and 100 is 4. So we say 4 into 12 will be 3. 4 into 100 is 25. So 0.12 as a fraction in its lowest terms would be 3 over 25 or 3/25, which corresponds to answer D. So the answer in this case should be answer D. All right. Next one, number 3. In number 3, they say in scientific notation, 170.04 is written as. Now, the scientific notation is the same thing as standard form. So this question could have also been asked as, in standard form, what is 170.04? All right. And how do we go about doing that? Well, you have to recall that scientific notation means putting a number in the form a by 10 to the power of b, where a is a number between 1 and 10. That number could be 1, but it cannot be 10, right? So it's actually a number between 1 and 10, including 1, but not including 10. And b is an integer, right? An integer is really a negative or positive number, including 0. It is non-fractional. It's not a fraction, right? So you can always go and have a look at what integers are if you want to do some more research, right? But it's really a number, negative or positive number, but not fractional. So there's a mechanical way that you come up with this, right? And the mechanical way basically is you look at the starting number, which is the 170.04, and in this case, you move the point to the left. The idea is that as you move the point to the left, you're trying to create a, which is a number between 1 and 10. That number could be 1, but it cannot be 10. So if I move this point here, one place to the left, I'll be creating 17.004. That's not satisfying the requirements for A. So if I move it another position or another point again to the left, meaning at this point, I create a number 1.7004, which is this number here. So I actually move the point from this position, 2 positions to the left, creating 1.7004, which is the requirements for A. It's fitting the requirements for the number A. And because I'm moving it to the left, right, that means I'm actually dividing the original number by 100. That means I have to compensate for that by multiplying by 100, which means multiplying by 10 to the power of 2. Mechanically, you could remember that if you're moving to the left, right, the number of spaces you move to the left to create A, that is the number that you would use for B. It would be positive, okay? So in this number, in standard form can be written like this. And you could always check it back, because if you take 1.7004 and multiply it by 10 squared, which is 100, you're going to have to move this point 2 places to the right. Multiplying by 100 means move the decimal point 2 places to the right, 1, 2, which would create or recreate the number that you started with, which is 170.04, right? And therefore, this form is what we call standard form or scientific notation. And actually, if you look at B, right, B is exactly that number that I created. Okay, I'm just gonna quickly ask. I'm hoping that you all are all here, you all are understanding, right? And I'm gonna ask any questions. Any questions so far?
No, sir.
No,
Or,
sir.
great. I know, Johnny, you just came in. Welcome. I hope you didn't have any questions there. All right. Savi, any questions?
No, sir.
All right. So that is Savi Rena?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, great. So let's continue. Let's continue into number 4. And in number 4, they say there are 40 students in a class. Girls make up 60% of the class. 25% of the girls wear glasses. How many girls in the class wear glasses? Now, if 60% of the class are girls, then let's find the number of girls in the class. That'll be 60% of the total. The total is 40, so that'll be 60% of 40. Now, what does 60% mean? It means 60 over 100, right? Of means to multiply 40, right? So 60% of the students, which is 40 students in all, would be girls. If we do this calculation here, right, we'll get 24 girls. And then 25% wear glasses, right? That's what they said. 25% of the girls wear glasses. So if 25% wear glasses, 25% means 25 over 100, which is really a quarter. So if you know it was a quarter right away, you can use it. And it's 25% of, again, means to multiply the girls wear glasses. And there are 24 girls. So if you do this calculation, it's really a quarter of 24, which is 6 girls. So 6 girls wear glasses, and that's answering the question, and that would be answer A. 6 girls wear glasses, so that's E. Let's look at number 5. if 560 is shared in the ratio 2 to 3 to 9, then the difference between the largest and the smallest shares is. All right. So what would be the difference? Well, let's look at the total number of shares firstly. I'm going to use something called the unitary method, right? So the total number of shares would be 2, 3, and 9. So let's add them up. And that gives us 14, right? So the total number of shares would be 14. Now, those 14 shares represent $560. So we're going to use that relationship here. Now, in the unitary method, which is what we would normally use in these circumstances, you utilize or you find for one share or one unit. So that means I'm going to divide by 14 on both sides. So one share would be 560 over 14, which works out to be $40, right? So $560 divided by 14 would give us $40. Now, the difference between the largest and the smallest shares, that's 9 is the largest share and 2 is the smallest share. So the difference would be 9 take away 2, which is 7 shares. So that's the difference. Now, if the difference between the largest and the smallest shares is 7 shares, and each of those shares is worth $40, then the difference would be 7 times 40, which would be $280. That is item C. Right now, this is the way that I'm doing it is not the only way. There are other ways to get these answers. So you may have another way that enables you to get the answer, and that's quite fine. Okay, I'm showing you what I believe to be the best or quickest option. Sometimes people actually find quicker options than mine. So be aware that that's always a possibility, right? But this is one of the methods. Okay, let's go down to number 6. If 60% of a number is 90, what is the number? Okay, so if 60% is equivalent to 90, let's find for 1%. So again, it's like a unitary method we're using, right? And we're saying that if 60% is equivalent to 90, then 1%, of course, would be 90 divided by 60. And therefore, the number, which would be 100%, that number would be the whole number, 100%, would be 90 over 60 times 100, right? So again, this is the unitary method. So 60% is 90, 1% is 90 over 60. Therefore, 100%, which is what we're looking for, the number itself, 90 over 60 times 100, right? Multiplying both sides by 100. And so we come up with our answer of 150. When you calculate this out here, you will get 150. So it means then that the final answer is 150. And that would be option C. That's option C. All right, the next one we're going to would be number 7. Number 7. So in number 7, they say the first 3 common multiples of 3, 4, and 6 are. Well, what is a multiple? A multiple means take that number and multiply it sequentially, right, by counting numbers or natural numbers. So these here would be the natural numbers. And if we want to find the multiples of 3, the first multiple will be 1 times 3. The second multiple will be 2 times 3. The third multiple will be 3 times 3, and so on. All these would be multiples when we work it out. Similarly, for 4, the multiples of 4 will be 1 times 4, 2 times 4, 3 times 4, and so on. And then the multiples of 6, same thing, 1 times 6, 2 times 6, 3 times 6. So what they're asking us for is what's the first 3 common multiples. So let's see where we find in common multiples, right? Let's find some common multiples, right? If you realize 4 times 3 here is 12, right? Oops, that wasn't too smart. Why is it? So 4 times 3 is 12, so that's 1. Then 3 times 4 is 12. And then 2 times 6 is 12. So if you notice, if you're going downwards, right, then the first multiple that is common to all of them in terms of the first meaning the lowest number, right? 12 is that number that is common to all of them. Then let's go on. If you continue down, you'd realize that when you reach h times 3, right, you're going to get 24. Right? You're going to get 6 times 4, 24. On this one, 4 times 6, 24. So that'll be the next common multiple, right? And then finally, if you continue doing multiples of 3, you will get 36 here, right? You would get, that'll be 12 times 3. Then 8 times 4 will give you 36. 6 times 6 will give you 36. So that's the third common multiple. Okay, so the common multiples, the first 3 common multiples, of course, would be 12, right, 24, and 36, which answer would be answer E, right? That'd be answer E. So that's this one here, 12, 24, and 36. Okay, so we go down to number 8, and the number 301 can be written as, right? Now, 301 is really 300 plus 1, right? 300 plus 1. So what we could say is that 300 plus 1 is what we're looking for. Now, 300 is the same thing as 3 by 10 squared, right? Because that's 3 by 10 squared really will give us 300. So that's a mistake there, right? 3 by 10 squared is 300. So that's how we can get this first part here. This 300 is the same thing as 3 by 10 squared. But then we still have to add the 1 to get 301. So this 3 by 10 squared will represent the 300, and then we'll have to add the 1. Now, where are we seeing 3 by 10 squared? 3 by 10 squared is here, and then you add the 1, all right? So the answer, therefore, that will fulfill 301 will be answer E, right? Where this part will give us 300, and then you add the 1 to give us 301. So that is answer E. Next one, number 9. The value of 5, of the digit 5 in the number 537. Now, this is a question, believe it or not, that they ask children from as early as standard 1 or standard 2, right? Where they want them to be able to tell them what is the value of different things. So what's the value of 7? What's the value of 3? What is the value of the digit 5? Okay? And sometimes they ask you what's the place value in standard 1, 2, and 3. And some people don't know that there's a difference between value and place value. In this case, the value of 5 would be 500s, which would be 5 times 100, or 500, which would be answer C. But if they had asked you what is the place value of the digit 5, you could not have said C or 500. You would have had to say hundreds. The place value would be hundreds, right? If this one, the place value would be tens. The place value here would be ones, right? Or some people will say 10, 100, ones, right? So you have to be aware that the value is different from the place value, okay? So be aware of that. In number 10, by the distributive law, 49 times 17 plus 49 times 3. What is that working out to be? Well, if you realize, right, this 49 is common. So you can take out 49 as a factor. That's called factorization, right? And leave 17 and leave 3 from here. That's called factorization because it's common, right? You notice a common factor, so you can take it out, and then you have 17 plus 3 in brackets. 17 plus 3 would give us 20. So that would be 49 times 20. And that corresponds to answer D, right? Which is this one here. A very tricky little one. Just make sure you can handle that, right? Okay, so we now go down to number 11. And in number 11, they say, which of the following sets is defined by this? Okay, now what does that mean, right? What does that mean? It means X is a member of the set Z, such that X is between -2 and 4, including -2 and including 4, right? So you have to be able to rationalize that. Now, Z it's a member of Z, but somebody asks, well, what is Z, sir? What is Z? Well, let's move across here. Z is the set of integers. And what are integers? Well, if we were to explore all of the numbers that fall under integers, or Z for short, they use Z for integers, they would include these numbers here, 0, and then you count to the right, 1, 2, 3, and you continue going to infinity, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you just keep counting positive numbers. All of those would be integers. And then if you go on the other side, -1, -2, -3, going down to infinity on the left-hand side or on the negative side, all of those numbers would be integers. So this is what integers are. But this set that they are talking about limits the integers to -2 as the smallest and 4 as the largest. So if we extract this set out of this universal set of integers, then this is what we end up with, right? We cannot go past -2 and we cannot go past 4 on the other side. So you have to stop at 4 here and you have to stop at -2 here. So this would correspond to answer D. If you look at D, it's the same thing as this, okay? So that's how you come up with that. Now, you need to be familiar with integers. You need to be familiar with counting numbers on natural numbers, which is given the symbol N. And you need to be familiar with whole numbers, which is normally given with the symbol W, okay? So natural numbers or counting numbers would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And whole numbers, W, would include 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so be aware of that because the question here could just as easily be, instead of Z, they use N, right? And instead of Z, they use W. Now, if they had used N, the answer would have had to start from here. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4 with this limit, right? And if it was whole numbers they were interested in case, let's say Z, instead of Z, they had W, then the answer would have been 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, all right? So just be aware that those are possibilities as well. Let's go down to number 12. In a class of 32 students, 17 study music and 20 study art. What is the least number of students who are studying both music and art? All right, so let's look at this. In a class of 32 students, so we know when we add up those who do art alone, those who do art and music, and those who do music alone or only, these numbers, when you add them up, they are supposed to come up to the number of students in the class, 32. Good. So what is the least number of students who are studying both music and art? So you have to get a value in here, right? That when you add it up to this value here, you're going to get 20. And when you add it up to this one, you're going to get 17. Because remember, 17 study music. So in the music circle, where you see the M, which is this circle here, you have to come up with a combination that when you add them together, you get 17. And on this side, because 20 study art, you have to come up with a number here such that when you add it to this number, these two numbers, you have to come up with, they must add up 20 to 20. So this number is a very important number. It is a number such that when you add these two, you get 17. And when you add these two, you get 20. So we tried different combinations. And what we realized is that if you use the number 5 here, right? 5 from 20 would give us 15, right? So 15 and 5 is 20. That's good. And 5 from 17 would give us 12. So 5 and 12 should give us 17, which we got as well, right? So the number 5 is fitting in exactly. Now, what we also need to do, the final check, is that when we add up all 3 of them, we need to get this total, 32. So if you add up 15 and 5, what you're going to get is 20. And then if you add up 20 and 12, right, you're going to get 32. And that's the critical thing. When you add up the numbers as well, you must get 32 because there are 32 students, right? if you try to use 3 here, right, then this number had to be 17, right? So that 17 and 3 would give you 20. And 3 and what would come here to give you, sorry, if it's art, it will be, yeah, 70 and 3 will give you 20, correct? And on this side, you have to get 17. So it will be 3 here and 14. So 3 and 14 would have given you 17. Now, if you add up those three combinations, you should get 32, like how we got 32 here. Let's try it. 17 and 3 is 20. 20 and 14 is 34. 34 is not equal to 32, so this combination cannot be right. Yeah, it didn't make sense checking the others because they were looking for the least number of students. So even if these worked, right, it wouldn't have been the option that you would choose because it would not have been the least. The least would be 5. But just for academic purposes, what I did was go back and try it with 12 to see what would happen, just to see. So if this is 12, to get 20, right, in the A circle, it'll be 12 from 28. So this would have had to be 8, right? So you'd have 12 here and 8, so 12 and 8. And in this circle, if this is 12 here, then to make 17, it'd have to be 5 here. So 12 and 5 would make 17, right? If we add up all now, 8 and 12 is 20 and 5 is 25, and that's not equal to 32. So this as well, even if we just to try to see what would happen, it's still not adding up to 32. So by all means, 5 would be the answer you're looking for. All right, so that's why we chose answer B. The answer therefore is B.
Excuse, sir.
Yeah.
Of Abraham said they are not getting through.
Who's not getting through?
Someone by the name of Abraham.
Abraham and who?
Abraham, that's who I saw.
Okay, yeah.
He's not getting through.
I'm seeing it here, but everybody else is getting through, so it has to be that he's not putting in the correct username and password. Could you, Rena, could you do me a favor and just message him the username and password that you use?
Sure, sir.
Right, just tell him now, because I told him what it was. Everybody is the same thing as we used before. But what happened to him? He didn't come in the ones before. So probably you could just send it to him for me now, please.
Sure, no problem.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Right, so we're going on now to number 13. And number 13 refers to the following information, right? You have P for prime numbers, Q for odd numbers, R for even numbers. And they say which of the following sets is empty, all right? And I am saying that if we look at B, this set would be empty because Q represents odd numbers, R represents even numbers. And we know that there are no odd numbers that are even numbers. So it means that that intersection that we are proposing, or intersection of Q with R, meaning numbers that are both even or odd, though that doesn't exist. So that there'll be a 0 or null set for that intersection, right? No elements fit into there. Because even numbers are those numbers that are divisible by 2, and odd numbers are those numbers that are not divisible by 2, all right? If you divide by 2, you'll always get a remainder. So there are no even numbers that are odd numbers, and therefore this here will be an empty set. Nothing could satisfy that, which is answer B. Okay, so we go on to number 14. And in number 14, they say in the Venn diagram, the number of elements in P is 5, the number of elements in Q is 9, and the number of elements in the union of P and Q would be 10, right? Or what is in P or Q is 10. What is the number of elements in P intersect Q, right? Or the intersection of P and Q? How many elements lie in P and Q? Now, once you ask a question like this and they don't give you the intersection, you use X for that intersection. So the first thing we do is place X in the middle right here. Then they said that the number of elements in P was 5. So that means inside of here, in this circle for P had to be 5. So if you already have X here, then in P only, which is this region here, it'll be 5 take away X, right? If they had told you that the number of elements in P only was 5, then you'd write 5 directly here. But they didn't say that. They said the number of elements in P is 5. That means in P only here, it would be 5 take away X. They told us the number of elements in Q is 9. So some people might be tempted to write 9 right here. But that wouldn't be true because the number of elements in Q is 9 says that in this whole circle, you would have 9. So that means if you have X here already, right? If you have X here already, then to get those elements or the number of elements in Q only, which is this area, you would have to say 9 take away X, which will be 9 minus X, right? So that's a very important concept. Only when they say they use the word only, then you could write these numbers directly in these spaces. Once they don't say that, you have to do the subtraction like this. All right, so the next step is once we have these things correctly allocated, we say, all right, if the number of elements in P or Q, this means P union Q, is 10, that means if we add up the elements in each individual area, which is here, here, and here, then we must get 10, right? Because the union refers to everything in these 3 areas added up together. So that means that 10 must be equal to 5 minus X plus 9 minus X. So 10 must be equal to 5 minus X plus 9 minus X, right? So that's the equation we'll work with. The 5 and the 9, we're going to add them up. This minus X will cancel out with that plus X, so we can cross out these 2 here, right? They cancel out with one another. And this minus X here, right, is what remains. 5 and 9 is 14, all right? And then in order to solve this equation, the easiest way to say it is to bring the minus X over on the left-hand side and change it to X. And then bring the 10 on the right-hand side and change it to minus 10, all right? So 14 take away 10 is 4. So we end up with X equal to 4. Now, if X equal to 4, then that is the number of elements in P and Q, right? That'll be 4. And then that will be equivalent to answer A. All right, so answer A is 4. In number 15, a dress which costs $180 is being sold at a discount of 10%. The amount of the discount is, all right, well, the discount is always 10% of whatever the cost price is, all right? So 10%, remember percent means divide by 100, so 10% means 10 divided by 100, of means to multiply, and what was the cost price? The cost price, if you look across here, is $180. So you put the 180 here, and you multiply it out. So if we multiply that out, you'll get these canceling, 0, 0. Let's cancel it out. This 0 cancels with that 0. And then this 0 here cancels with that 0. So you end up with $18, right? So $18 works out to be answer C. And that will be the amount of the discount that the person would have gotten. All right. Next one, a man's annual salary is $45,000. His tax-free allowances total $13,000. That means he's not going to pay tax on this amount. He has to pay a tax of 35% on his taxable income. The tax payable is, in other words, how much tax should he pay? Well, the taxable income would be his total income minus his tax-free allowances, which is this, right? He's not going to be taxed on this amount. So you back that out of what he earned, and the remainder, which is this figure here, would be his taxable income, how much money he has to pay tax on. Because remember, he's not going to pay tax on this. This is tax-free. It's $13,000. So when you do that subtraction, you're going to get $32,000 And his tax payable then will be 35%, right, of that 32,000. And when you calculate that, you're going to get $11,200, which is answer B. Now, I'm showing you here that I'm reminding you that you have to be able to do these calculations without a calculator, right? Because in these exams, of course, these multiple choice exams are 1.5 hours. And one of the main things you need to be aware is that you cannot use a calculator. So you have to be able to say, all right, 35% is his taxable income. So it'll be 35% means 35 out of 100 times $32,000, which is what he's going to pay tax on. This is his taxable income. Okay. And then you have to be able to say, all right, divided by 100 means we're going to cross these two zeros in the 100, and we're going to cross these two zeros in the 32,000. And then you have to multiply 35 by 320. So you have to be able to do that manually. So I did it by multiplying the 35 by 32 firstly, right? 35 by 32, which is what you're seeing here, right? And you need to be able to go through this process. And then what I remembered is not 32 by 35, it's 320. You see 32 and this 0 by 35. So whatever answer I get here, I have to add back one more 0 because I didn't put it up here. I used 32. So it should be 1120, and you put in another 0. That's why you see me have it there. So all those are little tricks that we do. And you must be able to do your long multiplication and so on and division like this, because there's no use of calculators allowed. And don't go with your phone. You know, you could end up being disqualified even if you didn't use the phone, right? Because that is not allowed either. So this answer is answer B, right? The next one, number 17, right? In number 17, if TT $6 is equivalent to US $1, then TT $15 in US dollars is. Okay, well, let's see. Let's do some ratios. TT dollars to US dollars, right? We know 6 TT is 1 US. So I wrote that down. 6 TT here is 1 US. Okay. So 1 TT will be 1/6 of a US. Dividing both sides by 6. If I divide this by 6, I get 1. If I divide this side, I get 1/6. I just left it like that. So 1 TT dollar, you only have to come up with 1/6 of a US dollar. How much ever that is in cents, we're not too worried about it yet. So 15 TT dollars will be 15 times, right? 15 times 1 is 15. So 15 TT will be 15 times 1/6, right? And 15 times 1/6 will give us, let's see, if you cancel down, you see 5 into 15, 3 into 15, 5. That's how you get 5 on top. 3 into 6, 2. You get 2 below. Right? So 5/2 is going to give us $2.50, which will be item. This is 2.5 or $2.50, which is $2.50. So 15 TT will be $2.50 US, which is item C. Right? $2.50 US. All right. I'm going to respond to a student here. Abraham, I see he's getting some problems. And then we'll go on to 18. I'm just going to respond on the phone here. Right. So one of my students could not get into the class. So what I did was basically reassure him that it's been recorded and it'll be up on our website, our YouTube website. And I'll also call to see, try to troubleshoot afterwards what is going on with him and why he's not able to get on. Okay. All right. But the good thing is that it's been recorded and he'll be able to access it afterwards. All right. So in number 18, if 7,000 is borrowed at the rate of 5% per annum for 3 years, what is the simple interest? Well, you have to remember the simple interest formula, right? Which is very easy. Simple interest is principal by rate by time over 100. Remember that the time must be in years, right? and the rate is 8% per annum. The principal is whatever you invest in or you're borrowing, right? But remember, this time must always be in years, right? So that's a very tricky part. Sometimes they put months and you have to convert it to years. Here, they were very kind to you. The time was in years, so you didn't have a problem. So let's substitute. The principal, which is what is being borrowed, is 7,000. The rate, 5% per annum, 5 goes here. And what is the simple interest? Well, that's what we need to find. So that's going on this side. And the time is 3 years. So everything is put in there in the formula, and we must be able to calculate this, right? So what I did was I said, all right, I'm going to divide the bottom by 100, cross those two. I'm going to divide the top by 100, so I cross these two. All right, and then I did 5 times 3 is 15, which is this here, and I have to multiply that by 70, right? So I went through the process, showed you how to do it, got 1050, and that would be the simple interest that is payable on this money borrowed. That corresponds to answer D, right? So if you look here, you're going to see answer D as 1050, okay? So rest assured, right, that is the case. All right, so let's go down to number 19. How much does a customer pay for an article marked at $50? All right, how much does a customer pay for an article marked at $50 if a sales tax of 6% is charged? Right, so tax will be 6%, right, on $50. So how much does the customer pay for an article? Right, so we must calculate the tax, and then we're going to add it to the original price to get how much he's going to pay. So the tax will be 6%. Look here, 6% is charged. 6% means 6 over 100 of the original mark price of $50. So let's work out that. How did we get $3? Well, 50 could go into itself one time, and 50 could go into 100 twice. Then this 2 could go into itself one time, and then 2 could go into 6 3 times. So it means then that the final answer is going to be 3 times 1 over 1, or simply $3. That is going to be the sales tax. So the price that he's going to pay would be the original price of $50 plus the tax of $3, which is $53, or item C. So that's number 53, item C. All right. Next one, Tracy bought a pen for $60 and sold it to gain 20% on her cost price. How much money did she gain? Well, remember, the gain is 20% on the cost price of $60. 20% means 20 over 100, that's percent, of multiply cost price $60. Right? So let's do a calculation. If you divide the bottom by 10 and the top by 10, you cross those two zeros. Then if you divide the bottom by 10 again, and the top, which is the 60 by 10, you cross those two zeros. So what you're going to end up is 2 by 6, 12 over 1, right? 2 by 6 is 12, and you're dividing that by 1. So your final amount is going to be $12. So the money she gained would have been $12, which is answer A. Answer A there. 21, a salesman is paid 5% of his sales as commission. His sales for last month were $2,020. How much commission was he paid? Well, 5% of this. 5% of this, all right? And if I divide the bottom here by 100, and I divide the top by 100, it means I must move the point 1, 2 positions. If you're dividing by 100, you're going to move the decimal, the number of zeros, which is 2 zeros, 100, to the left, right? And that's how we end up as 20.20, right? And then we're going to have to multiply the 5 by the 20.20, which we did here, 5 by 20.20. So when we multiply this out, you need to be able to multiply it out. Again, you don't have a calculator, so you must be able to calculate this, and your answer here comes out to be $101. So that's 101. That would be answer C. Answer C. 22, a loan of $8,000 was paid back in 2 years, right, in monthly payments of $400. the percentage interest on the loan was. Okay, but if he's paying back monthly payments of 400 and he's doing it in 2 years, how many months of payments would he be making? Well, 2 years, right, at 12 months per year will be a number of months being paid. It would be 2 years by 12 months. That's actually 24 months, right? And then every month he's paying $400. So for these 24 months, he's paying $400. So when you multiply 24 by 400, you're going to get $9,600 is the total that he's going to pay back. Now, remember, the loan was only $8,000 and he had to pay back $9,600. So the interest would be the difference between the two, the extra. And that would be $9,600 what he paid back, take away how much he borrowed, $1,600. So he had to pay back as interest on his $8,000 loan, $1,600. Now, the interest that he would have earned is always a function of what he borrowed in the first place. So the percentage interest would be the 1,600 out of the 8,000 he borrowed. That would give it the fraction, fraction. But remember, to convert a fraction now to a percentage, you must multiply by 100. So to get the percentage interest that he paid would be the interest over the original amount borrowed times 100, right? And let's see how that goes. So if I calculate, divide this and this, right? And then I take out, divide here now, 10, take out the 0 here, take out one of these on the top, right? So I end up with 16 over 8 times 100 times 10. Then I'm going to divide by 8 into 8 is 1, 8 into 16 is 2, right? And then I'm left with 2 times 10 over 1, and that will give me 20 over 1, or simply 20%, and that is corresponding to item D. Okay, so you know these canceling and thing you are supposed to know to do. All right, the next one is binary operations. So you have R star S equal to S to the power of R. Then what is 3 star 2? So you write back the original binary operation, which is R star S is equal to S to the power of R. Then you write back below that now what you want to find. 3 star 2. 3 star 2. So how do we work out that? Well, in these cases, the 3 replaces the R and the 2 replaces the S. So wherever I see R, I'm going to put 3. So right where I'm seeing R there, that has to be 3. And right where I see S here, that has to be 2. Okay, so it becomes 2 now to the power of 3. What is 2 to the power of 3? It means 2 by itself 3 times. 2 by 2 by 2. 2 by 2 is 4. 4 by 2 is 8. 8 corresponds to answer A. So the answer is E. Next one. 4 over 5x plus 2 over 5x. Now, what you need to know, I'm going to just write something here for you. If I put 1 over 5 plus 2 over 5, the answer is 3 over 5. What it says to me there, and it's a reminder for you, once the denominators are the same, right, and you're adding or subtracting, you only have to deal with the numerators and you keep the denominator the same. So the 5 will be the same, and you add the 1 and the 2 and you get 3. So 1/5 and 2/5 is 3/5. Let's do another one. Let's say we had 3/7 plus 2/7, right? Or 3 over 7 plus 2 over 7 is the same thing as 3/7 plus 2/7. And that simply will be 5/7. How come? Because seeing that the denominator is the same, then all you have to do is add the numerators. Right? Similarly now, if you look here, you notice that the denominators are the same, 5x and 5x. That is giving us permission to be able to simply add the numerators. And the answer will be that answer over whatever the denominator was. So we add 4 and 2 on top. That will give us 6. And we keep the denominator as 5x. So it will be 6 over 5x. And that answer is answer D. Okay, so just Use those patterns and you'll be quite okay. The next one is number 25, right? And in that one, they really wanted you to use the distributive law. So let's see. So this 5 has to be multiplied by x. This 5 has to be multiplied by y. So you see it here. 5 is multiplying by x. 5 is multiplying by y. Let's do that. 5 by x is 5x. 5 by y is 5y. So that's quite simple. On this one now, the minus 3 has to multiply by the x. The minus 3 has to be multiplied by the minus y. So this minus 3 times x is going to give us minus 3x. And then very importantly, minus 3 times minus y is going to be positive 3y because you're multiplying the same signs, minus and minus. Once the signs are the same and you're multiplying or dividing these numbers, the result is going to be positive. So you're going to have minus 3 by minus y as positive 3y. Then once we have this worked out, all we do is we group the like terms. So we're going to group x terms together. So this 5x and this minus 3x are going to be grouped together. And then this 5y and this plus 3y are going to be grouped together. So what is going to happen now is 5x take away 3x. That's an error there. That's supposed to be 5x take away 3x is 2x. So let me fix that.
I say C.
Yeah, this should be 2.
Yeah.
Let me see if I could fix it. Yeah, this is giving a little trouble. Okay. So this is 5x minus 3x, and that should be 2x, right? And then plus 5y and 3y is 8y. So that should be 2x plus 8y, which is actually answer C, right? So let's fix that.
Yes,
right, that's C. So very good. So that is item C. So the answer here is 2x plus 8y, which is item C. So if you got that, you're correct. All right, let's continue with number 26. And in number 26, we have x is minus 2, y is 3, t is 2. Then what is x over y to the power of t? Right? So the secret here, of course, is to place your numbers where the letters are, being very careful with your signs, okay? So you have the minus 2 for x. So right where x is, we're going to put in the minus 2. And where the y is, we're going to put in 3. So that's going to mean 3 has to go here. T, that's going to be t up here, 2. T is 2, so 2 goes on top here, which is this. All right, this t is being replaced by 2. All right, now what does this mean? Minus 2 over 3 squared means take the minus 2 over 3 and multiply it by itself, which is minus 2 over 3 again. So let's do that. Minus 2 by minus 2 will give us plus 4, and 3 by 3 will give us 9. So this answer is 4 over 9, and that will be item B. All right, so we have item B there for number 26. Number 27, 3x squared by 2x cubed, right? You have to remember that in these cases, we multiply the numbers, the 3 by the 2. Let me just turn on the power. Hold on. Right. I just had to turn on the power there. Right. So in these cases here, where you have the same letters, like x's in this case, but different powers, one is to the power of 2 and one is to the power of 3, what we do is we add the indices, right? So it'll be 3 by 2 and x squared by x cubed. But these indices, same letter, but different powers or indices. So we add them. So the 2 will be added to the 3, and that is going to give us 5. So the answer is x to the power of 5, and 3 by 2 is 6. So it'll be 6x to the power of 5, and that's answer A. Okay, so that was that one. Let's go down to 28. Now we are given that 2x plus 3 is greater than or equal to 9. The range of values of x is. So what is x? So in other words, solve for x then, right? And let's see what we do here. It goes just like an ordinary solution, which is you get rid of this plus 3, and you do that by minusing 3 on both sides. If I minus 3 here, I get nothing. If I minus 3 here, I get 6. 9 take away 3 is 6. Then I divide the left-hand side by 2, so I get x, and I must also divide the right-hand side by 2, which I did here. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So your answer is x is greater than or equal to 3, and that answer corresponds to answer D. Let's check it out. X is greater than or equal to 3. Next one, we have this relationship. What is x? In other words, if this is the case, solve for x. So it's some algebra we're doing, right? So 5x minus 26 is equal to x plus 50. Well, the first thing we do is we get rid of the x from the right-hand side, and we get rid of the minus 26 from the left-hand side, right? And that goes along with some words that we had, and those words will remove all solitary numbers from the left-hand side and remove all x terms from the right-hand side. That was what how we had expressed it when we were studying these things. And the solitary number of the left-hand side was minus 26, so we had to get rid of that. And in order to get rid of that, well, you add 26 here and you add 26 here. Some people say bring the minus 26 over and change the sign, so it becomes plus 26. How to get rid of this x? Well, the real thing that you do is you minus x on the right and you minus it on the left as well. That's how you end up with no x here and a minus x here. But in the past, the easy way to say it, right, is take this plus x and bring it over on the next side, and it becomes minus x. Okay, so now 5x take away x gives us 4x. 2x plus 50 is 76. And then how do we get rid of this 4? Well, we divide the left-hand side by 4, and we divide the right-hand side by 4. Or, yeah, that's basically it. So if I divide the left-hand side by 4, I'll get x. If I divide the right-hand side by 4, I'll get 19, right? Because 76 divided by 4 is 19. So x therefore is 19, and that corresponds to answer D. In this one, right, they give you a rectangle and its dimension, right? 2 centimeters is the width, and the length is x minus 4 centimeters. The area of the rectangle in centimeters squared is x squared. Which of the following equations may be used to find the value of x? Well, what's the area of a rectangle? It's length multiplied by width. So the area which they gave us as x squared, we write it down. And how would we calculate this area? The length by the width, or the width by the length. So 2 times this, x minus 4. 2 times x minus 4. So let's calculate. X squared would be 2 by x minus 4. And we could have gone ahead and worked it out further, but at this point we realize that this is actually corresponding to A, from which we could go ahead and find the value of x. So the answer in this case was A. Okay. In this one, you had to know the equation to calculate the arc, or the arc length, all right, of a sector. So let's look at it. The figure above, not drawn to scale, which means you can't go and take a ruler and try to measure the distances. It shows a sector of a circle center O, right? So if I extend this and I go all the way wrong, I would form a circle, right? But this is just part of that circle. The length of the minor arc PQ is 8. So from here to here is 8. 8 centimeters is that length. Okay, great. Now, what would be the length of the circumference of the circle? Well, first of all, let us recall that the arc length L, which would be from P to Q, right? That is what we call L. Right? That arc length, the L, is given by this formula, 2 pi r times theta over 360. All right, so you have to memorize this. It really comes from 2 pi r being the circumference of the circle, which we call C, and then you multiply it by whatever the fraction that the sector is taking up, theta being the angle of the sector. So in this case, this 60 represents theta. This really is theta. So let's put in some values and see what we could come up with. The arc length L is 8 centimeters in this case, so we put that in. The circumference C is unknown, and that's actually 2 pi r. Theta is the 60 degrees, so we put that theta 60 degrees. And 360, of course, goes below. Now let's continue. If I divide the top by 60, I'll get 1. If I divide the bottom by 60 as well, I'll get 360 divided by 60 is 6. So this is our formula so far. Now, I want to work out what the circumference C is because they want us to find out what would be the length of the circumference of this circle. So I want to work out what C is. Now, to do that, I am recognizing that if I multiply the right-hand side by 6, you see the 6 here? I multiplied by 6, this will cancel out, giving me 1, and 1 times C will give me the circumference I'm interested in. So I'm going to multiply the right-hand side of this equation here by 6. That's the red 6 there. And I also have to multiply the left-hand side by 6 to keep the equation valid. Whatever I do on one side, I must do it on the other side. So what happens is that this 6 here is going to cancel with this 6 here. So I'm going to get 6 into 6, 1, 6 into 6, 1. Right? And of course, 1, all these 1s here mean is just simply 1 times C, which is C, or the circumference. And that's going to be equal to 6 times 8, which is 48 centimeters. So the circumference that they are looking for here is 48 centimeters, which is option C. Right? So that gives us our answer as 48 centimeters. Let's go ahead and look at number 33. The volume of a cube whose edge is 6 centimeters long is, well, let's look at volume. How do you find the volume of a cube? Volume of a cube is side by side by side or side cube, right? And they want us to find the volume of that cube whose side S is 6. So it simply be 6 cube. 6 by 6 by 6. 6 by 6 is 36. 36 by 6 works out to be 216 cm cube. So that would be the answer that we are looking for. And where is that across here? That is actually answer D. Okay, so for 33, the answer was D. Let's go on to 34. In 34, 250 millimeters expressed in meters. Now, you need to know the conversion. 1 meter is 1,000 millimeters. So, 2,500 millimeters, how much is that? How many meters is that? Well, if I need a whole 1,000 to get 1 meter, then I just simply have to divide this by 1,000 to see how many groups of 1,000 I'll get. And dividing this by 1,000 simply means what? Cross 2 zeros, 2 zeros. And then if I am dividing by 10 below, cross a 0 here, and dividing by 10 on top means move the point 1 place to the left, right? So I'm going to end up with 2.5. So 2,500 millimeters really is 2.5 meters, which was answer B. 35. Tom leaves tongue P at 600 hours and drives to tongue Q, which is 595 kilometers away. He arrives in tongue Q at 1300 hours the same day. Tom's average speed was, okay? Now, 600 hours to 1300 hours is really 7 hours, right? If you check from 6 to 13, remember it's the same day. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, that'll carry it to noon, and then you go 1 extra hour. So that's a total of 7 hours, right? That drive would have taken. Now remember the formula for average speed is total distance traveled divided by total time taken, right? That's a formula you need to know. So the total distance traveled from here was 595 kilometers. So we place it here. The total time taken was 7 hours. We put it here. Our answer will be in kilometers per hour. And then if you divide 595 by 7, take your time and do it, you'll get 85 kilometers. Remember, you have to be able to divide, okay? So the answer there will be 85 kilometers per hour. And that is answer C, right? So that was that. On leaving Trinidad, the time on a pilot's watch was 2,300 hours. When he arrived at his destination in the same time zone on the following day, his watch showed 3 hours, 300 hours. All right, 2300, 300. How many hours did the flight take? All right, well, let's check it out. Remember, this was the following day. All right, so 2300 hours to 2400 hours. That's how the 2400-hour clock works. That will close off that particular day. Right, so that time is 1 hour. But now we start to move into the other day because remember, he went into the following day. So from 2400 hours to 300 hours means you're going to start over. So 2400 hours to 100 hours the next day, that's 1 hour, to 200 hours to 300 hours, that's 3 hours in all. So this time frame was 300 hours. So the total time taken will be 1 from here and 3 from here, which gives us 4 hours in all. So that corresponds to answer A, 4 hours. 36, answer A. 37. 50 guests, right, will each serve 2 glasses of champagne. So 50 guests, 2 glasses, right? So that's the number of glasses that were served in all. That's 100. Now each glass held 150 milliliters. So that's 100 glasses here at 150 milliliters, right? And that total, there will be total number of milliliters of champagne served. How many liters of champagne were served? Okay, so this here will be the number of milliliters, but they want to know how many liters. So we need to know the conversion. So let's go here. 1 liter is equal to 1,000 milliliters. So every time you have a group of 1,000, then that's a liter. So I have to take this total number of milliliters and see how many groups of 1,000 are in there, because remember every group of 1,000 is 1 liter. That means I have to divide by 1,000. And if you go through that process, let's see what happens. I'm going to divide here by 10, there by 10. Divide here by 10, divide here by 10. I'm going to notice that 5 could go into here 1, 5 could go into here 2, and then 2 into 2, 1, 2 into 2, 1. Right? So what we're ending up with is 1 times 1 times 15, which is 15 on top, and 1 below. So that's 15 over 1, or simply 15 liters would be the answer. That is answer C. Right? So the answer there was C. In number 38, they ask a question, right? They say, which of the figures below, not drawn to scale, has an area equal to half 3 plus 4 times 5 square units? Okay, so what we do is we recall the area of a trapezium, right? Now, in words, the area of a trapezium is this. It's a half multiplied by the sum of the lengths of the parallel sides times the perpendicular, that's what this symbol means, distance between the parallel sides. Okay, so I learn it with the words because in this way I could apply it to any trapezium, no matter what shape they bring it in. Right, so these are trapeziums here. Now, a trapezium is a 4-sided shape or polygon, right, that has 1 pair of parallel sides. Another way of saying that is a trapezium is a quadrilateral with 1 pair of parallel sides. So the pair of parallel sides here is this and this in all of them, right? And so if we follow this formula, the area of these trapeziums will be a half times the sum of the parallel sides times the perpendicular distance between the sides. So if we apply this formula to here, it means that this and this would be representing the sum of the lengths of the parallel sides. And let's see, all of them, not all of them, these two, this one and this one, has 3 and 4 as the lengths of the parallel sides. Okay, so these two look like they could fit into this formula, right? And then we have to multiply by 5. But what is that 5? We are multiplying by 5, and that 5 will be the perpendicular distance between the parallel sides. which one of them shows 5 here as being the perpendicular distance between the parallel sides? Certainly, this one doesn't show it right away, but this one does, because there's a perpendicular. Here's the distance between one parallel side and another. So this 5 is definitely showing us the perpendicular distance between the parallel sides. So this trapezium here is adhering to this calculation, and it is showing that this and this are linked together. In other words, the area of this trapezium here will be a half. Look, the half here. Sum means to add. The length of the parallel sides, this is one length here. Sorry, this is one length, 3 here. This is another length, 4, right? Times 5, which will be the perpendicular distance between the sides. So this formula is working quite well for this trapezium, and it is exactly the formula that they are talking about. So this figure, figure B, is the one that will satisfy the condition stated. So the answer for this one is B. Okay, we come down to 39. In item 39, right, we are viewing a cylinder, right? This is a cylinder. And they say the diagram, not drawn to scale, shows a cylinder of radius 3 centimeters, radius being the distance from the center to the circumference, and height of 8 centimeters. Here's the height. What is the volume? Well, the volume of any cylinder is the area of the regular cross section, right, which in this case is the area of a circle, times the perpendicular distance or height or length relative to this area. This is a general volume formula for any prism, right? So we just applying it to this particular prism, which has a circular cross section, and that's known as a cylinder. So the area of the cylinder would come here, and that's pi r squared. Area of this circle, sorry, will be pi r squared. All right, and the length will be this length here. It's really the height of the cylinder in this case. So pi r would be 3, so r squared would be 3 squared. L will be 8, this distance here, 8 comes in here. So let's work out that. 3 squared is 9, 9 times 8 is 72, so that's how we get the 72. And pi by 72 is 72 pi. So the volume of that cylinder will be 72 pi, which is C. C here? C. So the answer is C in this case. Don't forget, if there's anything that you're not following, you can just unmute and ask a question, okay? I hope you all are going quite fine as we move through. In number 40, the area of a triangle is 30 cm squared and its base is 10 centimeters. What is the perpendicular height of the triangle? All right. So in that triangle, there's a base, right? And there is a perpendicular height. So let's draw a basic triangle like this, right? And the base is 10 centimeters. The perpendicular height is unknown. Perpendicular, meaning there's a 90-degree there, right? And they told us the area is 30 cm squared. So what formula can we apply here? Now, you guys are supposed to know 3 formulas for the area of a triangle. Fortunately, they normally give the formulas for the area of a triangle at the front of the paper in the formula sheet, right? But you still have to know to apply them. In this case, the area formula that we will use is base by height over 2, or a half base by height. And this height is the perpendicular height, this edge here. So let's put in some figures. The area they told us was 30. The base was 10. Base was 10. The height is unknown. And then we have to divide that by 2. Base by height over 2. So let's see what happens. What we decided to do was to multiply both sides by 2. So if we multiply both sides by 2 and multiply this side by 2 and this side by 2, what is going to happen is that these 2 will cancel out here. And what will happen is that 2 by 30 on the left will give us 60. 10 by h on the right will give us 10 each, right? And so to get what h is, which is the perpendicular height that they want, simply divide the right-hand side by 10 and the left-hand side by 10. So dividing the right-hand side by 10, I'll guess h, and dividing 60 by 10, I'll get 6. So h is equal to 6 centimeters, and that is E. 6 centimeters. So the answer for 40 was E. The answer for 41, the height in centimeters of 10 students are 150, 152, and so on. What is the range? Well, you have to know what the range is. The range is the longest, right, minus the shortest. The tallest person height minus the shortest person's height, that will be the range that they're looking for. So the longest or the tallest person, right, in this case was 170 centimeters. That's this figure here. And the shortest person in this range, in this all of these heights here, was 150, right? I'm not seeing anything smaller than that. So the range of heights would be 150, take 170, take away 150, which is 20 centimeters, and that was B. That was B. In 42, they say a bag contains 60 marbles of different colors, but similar in size and mass. The probability of randomly choosing a red marble is 5/12. How many red marbles does the bag contain? Okay, what is the formula for probability? Well, the probability of any event is the frequency of that event divided by the total frequency. So you have to memorize this. So the probability of this event, they told us, was 5/12. So I write down that, 5/12. But we know there's a formula to work out this probability. And what is that formula? The frequency of the event, which in this case refers to the number of red marbles. So this R here is really the number of red marbles, right? That's what we're interested in. How many red marbles? So the number of red marbles over the total frequency, total number of marbles, would give us the probability of the marble being red if you randomly choose, right? So R over 60 is the probability, but they told us that that was 5/12. So these two must be equal. So let's cross multiply now. 12 times R, remember what is cross multiplying? These two multiplied must be equal to these two multiplied. So 12 by R must be equal to 60 by 5. And therefore, R must be equal to 60 by 5, whatever that is, divided by 12. What we did was divide this side by 12 to cancel it, divide this side by 12. So you end up with 60 by 5/12, which gives us 25, okay? Because, of course, 12 into 12, 1. 12 into 60 is 5. 5 by 5 is 25. So the answer is 25, which is answer D, right? That means that there are 25 red marbles in the bag. Next one, number 43. It refers to this bar chart here. The bar chart above shows a number of books read by the children who took part in a survey. How many children took part in the survey? Well, 4 books were read by 3 children. So that's 3 children you have to take into account here. 5 books were read by 4 children. So that's 4 children you have to take into account. 6 books were read by 2 children. 7 books were read by 5 children. And 8 books, if you look across here, was read by 1 child. So the number of children in this survey would be this sum. 3 and 4 is 7, and 2 is 9, and 5 is 14, and 1 is 15. So the answer here would be B. The number of children who took part would be 15, B. Number 44. If the mean of the 4 numbers 4, 8x, and 12 is 10, then x is mean or average. How do we find the mean or average? Well, there's a formula. It says that x bar, which is the mean, is the sum of x over n, right? That's the formula. It simply means add up all the values and divide by the number of values that there are if it's not a frequency distribution. In other words, if it's just one value. So in this case, we'd have to add up the 4, the 8, the x, and the 12, and divide by how many there were. There was 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers. And that answer we were told was 10, is 10. So when you work out this, you're supposed to get 10. So our job now is to work out the unknown value of x, right? So that's not a problem. We could say that firstly, let's multiply this side by 4 and this side by 4, right? I'm just going to do it here so you can see I'm going to multiply here by 4 and multiply here by 4, right? So this 4 will cancel with this one, and you'll get 40 here. 10 by 4 is 40. So 40, therefore, is going to be equal to, right, this 40 here is going to be equal to 4 plus 8 plus x plus 12. So I wrote it down. This 40 here is going to be equal to 4 plus 8 plus x plus 12. 4 plus 8 plus x plus 12. And therefore, 40 is equal to, when you add up 4 and 8, you get 12, and 12 is 24 plus x. And therefore, to get x, we just simply minus 24 on both sides. Some people say bring it over, change the sign. 40 take away 24 is x, and 40 take away 24 is 16. So your answer there is D, because D is 16. The next one, item 45, right? If you look at this diagram, right, you're seeing a straight line A to C. Now, if I add up this angle here, which is the 120, and this missing angle here, I must get 180 degrees. So let me put that in here in the context. That angle C is really this angle here, C, right? Which is referring to the angle where the chocolate is. And if I add up that 120 and this C, because this is a straight line, I have to get 180. So what you're noticing is that this 120 plus C must be equal to 180, because angles on a straight line add up to 180 degrees. Okay, so what we're going to do, if that's the case and they want us to find C, right, because they're saying is here, the pie chart shows the preference in drinks of a group of students. If 12 students prefer chocolate, then the total number of students, right? So we need to know what's the total number of students. So I'm first going to, because they told us 12 students prefer chocolate, I want to see what angle here is referring to those 12 people, right? So I want to find that angle, and that's why I went through saying that 120 plus C must be 180. Therefore, the angle C is going to be 180, take away 120, right? Minus 120 on both sides, or bring this over and change the sign to negative. So 180 minus 120 is 60. So it tells me that that angle where the chocolate is actually 60 degrees. But they said 12 students prefer chocolate. So those 60 degrees must be referring to the 12 students, right? Now, if 60 degrees is 12 students, then 1 degree will be 12 over 60. Divide here by 60, divide there by 60. Now, if 1 degree is 12 over 60, then the total, all of these, this 360, which would represent those who prefer milk, chocolate, orange juice, and pineapple juice, that'll be 360, right? Could be found by saying 360 times 12 over 60. Because remember, 1 degree is 12 over 60, right? Therefore, 360 degrees, which is the total circle, total number of students, will be 360 degrees times 12 over 60. 12 over 60. If you calculate that, let's see, 60 into 61, 60 into 360 is 6. Right? And then if we multiply 6 by 12, we're going to get 72 students in all. So the answer for B would be 72 students. So there are 72 students in all. In number 46, they say the maximum point of y equal to 4x squared minus x squared is. But the maximum point really is this tip top point here, right? It's at the tip top of the curve, which is this point right here. Now, in order to state a point, you need an x coordinate and a y coordinate. So the x coordinate starting from here will be 1, 2. So our x coordinate is 2. Our y coordinate to get to this point will be 2, 4, will be 4. So our y coordinate is 4. So the maximum point which must state a x and a y coordinate, will be 2 for the x, 4 for the y, or the maximum point is 2, 4. So right here is going to be the point 2, 4. And that corresponds to answer B. 2, 4 is answer B. Let's go down to number 47. Item 47 refers to the graph. So we're looking at this graph here. Right? And the straight line AB cuts the y-axis at. Well, this is the y-axis here. Where is it cutting the y-axis? Right here. Okay? So the point where the line AB cuts the y-axis is called the y-intercept. And always remember, wherever the y-intercept is, x is going to be 0. This is very important. X is always going to be 0, right, at that point where it cuts the y-axis. Because to get there, you don't have to go left, you don't have to go right. That means 0. X is 0, and then you just state the y value. So x is 0, and y is going to be what? Minus 2. Y is minus 2. So our coordinates, right, of this y-intercept, or the point where AB cuts the y-axis, coordinates of here is going to be x0, y minus 2, or 0 minus 2. That actually is D, 0 minus 2. Okay, so just be careful when you're doing it. Don't make any errors. They say, which of the following sets is represented by the relation, and this is the relation here. Which one is represented by that? Okay, well, let's start with the first one and let's work through and see, right? So what's the relationship we're going to check out? X squared plus 3, and we're going to see if it's working with the points A, right? So x is mapping onto x squared plus 3. X is mapping onto x squared plus 3. Let's see if that is true. So if these set of points follow this rule, then if I use x as 0 in this relationship here, I'm supposed to get y as 3. Let's see if that's happening if we use it here. I'm going to use x as 0, which is this 0 here, in x squared plus 3, x squared plus 3. Well, if it's 0, x squared will be 0 squared because x is 0 plus 3. 0 squared, let's check it out, is 0 plus 3 will be 3. So when x is 0, if I substitute it in here, I'm supposed to get y as 3. Is that true? Yes, look, 3 here, 3 here when we work it out. So this is it worked fine for this first one. Let's try another one. If it works on 2, well, we're good. We're sure it's it. So we're going to try it with x as 1 now. We're going to take x as 1, put it in here. And if we get 4, right? If we get 4, then we know that it works. It's working consistently. So if I take x as 1, put it in here, and I get 4, which is this here, then I know it's working. So x as 1, 1 squared will be x squared plus 3. Let's see what we get as the answer. 1 squared is 1. 1 plus 3 is 4. So it works once again. So when x is 1, and I put it into the formula, I get y as 4. And that's a point 1, 4 as well. And they are saying that this point here is lying on this, or is being represented by this, and that is in fact so. If you try that with these, you will see that even though it works out for this, it will not work out for these numbers here, right? Or it wouldn't work out for all of them. It only worked out for all of them here, right? And you could verify it again. 2 squared is 4. 4 and 3 is 7, so it worked here. Let's try it with this. 3 squared is 9. 9 and 3 is 12. It works here. So it worked for all of these points. And therefore, we know definitely that this set is represented by this relation. So that's answer E. Answer E. All right, we go down to this one here. We say the inequality above is defined by. Well, let's look at this inequality. All right. And what we are seeing is that let's go down here. It's the same one here. So we're going to open it up. All right. what you see in here, very importantly, is that this is not shaded here and it's not shaded here. So it means what we are looking for is not going to be equal to -2, nor is it going to be equal to 3. So where you see these equalities here, right, they cannot exist because it's not shaded in. So once you see an equality, it cannot be this one and it cannot be this one, because it's saying that it's including 3 here and it's including 2 here, which is not the case because they are not shaded. Similarly with this one, right? Because you're seeing the equalities. But if you look at this one, there's no equality, which means it's saying that you're not including -2 and you're not including 3, which is what this unshaded circle is saying. So right away, we could identify this D as the correct option because it's saying X is between -2 and 3, which it is because you see the line shaded there, but it's not including -2, nor is it including 3. And that's why you don't see the equality signs. Like here where you're seeing it, you're not seeing it here. And therefore, this is the correct one, answer D. Let's go to number 50, right? We have a function and they want us to find h of -6. So let's do that. 3 times x has to go in here. -2 over 5, -2 over all over 5. So what is going to go for x is this value here, the -6. So -6 is going to go where the x was. So this x is being replaced by -6, and we simply work that out. So let's work it out now. 3 by -6 is -18, -2 all over 5. -18 -2 is -20 all over 5. And when you divide unlike signs, the result is going to be negative. And 20 divided by 5 is 4. So that's answer A. Right? -4. -20 divided by 5, therefore, is -4, which is answer A. In number 51, you have a relationship or a function f that is relating x to y. And you want a function that will relate all of these numbers and map them onto these numbers. Which one will do that? Well, let's try and see which one does it. When we checked it out, we realized that this one was mapping all of these numbers onto these numbers. Let's try 2, right? If we use this, f of x is x plus 2. If we start with 2 as x, then if x is 2, f of x will be f of 2. And that means that where x is, we're going to put 2. And let's see what happens. 2 plus 3 is 5. Is it mapping onto 5? Yes, 2 has mapped onto 5, so it worked there. Let's try 5 now for x. Let's try 5 now for x. So we're going to take 5 and we're going to put it into here, which means 5 is going to replace the x plus 3. 5 plus 3 is 8. Did it map onto 8? Yes, 5 mapped onto 8. We went all the way down to 11. You could do it with 8 as well and you get the answer, but we checked 11 as well. Let's see what happens with 11. 11 plus 3 is 14. 14. Let's try 8. 8 plus 3 is 11. So right. So this function is taking all of the x values and mapping it onto the corresponding y values. So this function, x plus 3, f of x equal to x plus 3 is the correct function, which is item C. Right? So we know that that is item C was correct. A boat was traveling on a bearing of 270 degrees. In what direction was it traveling? Okay, so how do I find 270 degrees? Well, I start at a point, draw a north line, and go clockwise the amount. They say 270. So this would, from here to this horizontal here would have been 90. If we had gone down to this point, it would have been 180. And therefore, at this point, it would have been 270. So a bearing of 270 is an arrow going this way. But if we look at our cardinal points, north, south, east is on the right, west is on the left, remember the word we will realize that the bearing of 270 is actually in a westerly direction, or west, and that is item B. So the answer here is B. They say if the sum of the interior angles of a polygon is 4 right angles, what is that polygon? Well, that's pretty easy because 4 right angles is 4 times 90 degrees because one right angle is 90 degrees. So 4 right angles will be 4 times 90 degrees, which is 360 degrees. Now, from our calculations, we know that a triangle has a sum of its internal angles being 180. Any quadrilateral, sum of the internal angles is 360. And a pentagon, anybody remember what is the sum of the internal angles in a pentagon?
540.
540, very good. And those are the three that I asked you to memorize, because over time you'd realize that those are the three that come up 95% of the times. They sometimes ask you more where you go to the formula. Let me ask a question. Let's see who could remember. Do any of you guys remember what is the formula to find
Yes, sir.
the sum of the internal angles of any polygon? Tell me.
Open bracket 2n minus, no, open bracket 2n minus 4 close bracket times 90.
Very good. All right. So that formula tells us the sum of the internal angles of any polygon. But Rena, could you tell us what the n stands for?
So it stands for the number of, no, 2 times n.
What's the
2n
n?
minus n. Oh, the number of sides, sir.
Right. Very good. So I just wanted to know, because, you know, we have the formula, very good, but how do we use it, right? And the answer is the n tells us the number of sides of the polygon or shape that we're interested in. So for example, if it's a triangle, n would be 3 because it has 3 sides. And of course, if you put 3 for n, it'll be 2 by 3, which is 6. 6 minus 4 is 2. 2 times 90 is 180. So in a triangle, you add up the angles. Inside, you get 180. In any quadrilateral, n will be 4. So it'll be 2 times 4, which is 8. 8 take away 4 is 4. 4 times 90 is 360. And if you do it with the pentagon, which is 5 sides, you'll get 540. So it's good to memorize the first 3 so that you don't have to go through that calculation that I just did. And in cases like this, you'd recognize that if they're talking about 4 right angles as the sum of the interior angles, which is 360 degrees, then you know right off the bat that that polygon has to be a quadrilateral, because we learned by heart that quadrilaterals sum internal angles sum to 360. All right, so that's answer D. Item 54 refers to the diagram below of a construction with center E, which is here, right? An arc BC is drawn with center B. So if you start here, you're going to draw this arc here, right? And cut it at B. And the same radius with the same center, with the center B. So you take your compass and put the point here now. And with that same radius that you just used, you scribe back the arc PCQ to cut it here. That process, if you go back and you review it, you will see that that is the process for constructing 60 degrees. Yeah, and that is shown in that video site that I have given you access to. There's a really nice chapter in there that shows all the methods of constructing 90 degrees, 60 degrees, 120, triangles, rectangles, everything. It's maybe close to 2 hours of drawing in there for you. So you can always go back there and review it if you want to review how to get 60. Because in your exam, they might do the same thing with 45, you know, with 90 from a point off of the line and all these different things. So if you're not familiar with the method, you know, you wouldn't be able to answer this, right? So this was a nice question. They adapted it really nicely to the multiple choice format. Okay, number 54. What is the measure of BAC? What is this angle here? Oh, this is the one where we had said 60 degrees. 60 degrees, right? Okay, good. So that's that one. Let's come down to 55. So 55 refers to the following graph, right? In the figure above, the line CD is the image of AB. So CD is the image of AB, right? What is this? Is it a rotation, reflection, translation, enlargement? Well, if we look at this y-axis here, and you measure from the y-axis to A perpendicularly, and then you do the same measurement to the left, you realize it's the same distance. Similarly, if you measure from the y-axis to B, and then you measure on the other side, you realize it's the same distance as well. Let's see. From here to here is 1, 2, 3, and then 2, and then 1, 2, 3, and then 2. So you realize that it's a it's a reflection, because in a reflection, the distance between the mirror line, perpendicular distance between the mirror line and any point, will be the same on either side, right? So you're getting a reflection there. So it's really a reflection in the y-axis, which is option B. In number 56, they say in the triangle, the value of x is. Okay, so this is our favorite, because if you notice, these two dashes here tells us that the sides AB and BC are equal in length. And anytime you have a triangle where two sides are equal like this, two adjacent sides, we know that that triangle is isosceles. Now, if it's isosceles where the two equal sides meet up here, that is the apex angle, right? And the other two will be the base angles, these two. So angle A and 40 will be base angles, and we know that the base angles are what? Equal. So base angles A and C will be equal. So if this is 40, it means this has to be 40 as well. Now, of course, we just revised that the sum of the internal angles will be 180. So if I add up this, this, and this, I must get 180. So I wrote it down. X, which is this, plus 40 here and here must give us 180. The 40 and the 40 give us 80 when we add them together. And therefore, x plus 80 is 180. So if I minus the 180, right, bring it over and change the sign or minus it from both sides, I'm going to get the value of x, which is 100 degrees, and that is C. So the value that they were looking for was 100 degrees. Right, I hope you're okay with that. The next one is the image of a point P, and they tell you the value of P here, under a translation is. How you find that? Well, you must remember this formula, right? Remember all of our transformations, there are formulas that we are supposed to be familiar with. And a translation is the first type of transformation that we learn. So it's something that they almost certainly going to bring somewhere for you, because it's the most basic transformation. And you need to memorize the equation that goes along with all transformations. What is the equation? SP, or start point, plus TV, translation vector, must be equal to the EP, or endpoint. Right? So but remember, this is a vector relationship, so everything has to be in vector form. So a start point.
That's not the image points, that's not the object.
Well, let's see. The image of a point, this. So the image of this means this has to be the start point. So that's why we write this down first. Under a translation, so this is the translation vector, 3, 4, will give us the endpoint. So what is the image? The image of this. This is what they're trying to find. So the start point is this, the translation vector, and they want us to tell them what is the image or the endpoint. So there's the object plus the transformation vector is going to give us the image. So the image is what they want us to calculate. So you have to calculate it using this formula. So the -2 is added to the 3 is added to the 4, and the answer gives us the image point. This works out to be 1, this works out to be 7, but remember, even though this is a vector form, we don't want it in vector, we want it in coordinates, because the image will be coordinates of a point, it will be a point. So you have to convert this now, instead of representing it how? Vertically, which will be components of the position vector, we want to get the coordinates. So all we do is simply write it horizontally. So therefore the image will be 1, 7, and that is D, right? That's the image. They want the image, and we found the image for them. So the answer is D. In number 58, they say a ladder 5 meters long is leaning against a vertical wall. So this is my ladder here, and it's leaning onto this vertical wall here that I drew, okay? Vertical wall means okay, somebody's chatting, but I'm not seeing the chat. Right. The vertical wall here means this here, and it means there's a 90-degree here. So let me put in that 90-degree here for you. Right? That's what the vertical wall is saying. The foot of the ladder is 3 meters away from the wall. So this is the foot of the ladder here, and it's 3 meters away from this wall here. That's 3 meters. So that's why I put that as 3 meters there. How far up the wall does a ladder reach? So how far up the wall? In other words, find this distance here from the top to the bottom. How far up the wall? Now, because there's a right angle relationship in this triangle, we could use something called Pythagoras Theorem. And anytime I ask somebody what's Pythagoras Theorem, they always say a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared. Now, if I were to give a mark out of 10, I'd probably give between 7 and 8 for that, right? Because the person hasn't told me what A is, what B is, nor what C is, right? And even if they did tell me what it was, I would still reserve 1 mark for something that is very specific about Pythagoras' theorem. And the best way to talk about Pythagoras' theorem is to start off by talking about the fact that it only applies to a right angle triangle. So you say Pythagoras' theorem says that for a right angle triangle, the square on the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares on the other 2 sides. And that way, it doesn't matter if it's A, B, or C, P, Q, R, L, M, N, it doesn't matter what letters they use. It would still hold because the hypotenuse is always the hypotenuse. It's the side that is opposite the right angle. And the other 2 sides is always the other 2 sides. Okay? So the square on the hypotenuse, which we call A, is equal to the sum of the squares on the other 2 sides, B and C. So let's see what that is. In this case, the hypotenuse here is 5. So that's 5 squared. And the other 2 sides, one is 3 and one is x. So the hypotenuse squared is equal to the sum of the squares of the other 2 sides, one being 3 meters and the one unknown, x. So you write down your formula. Always write it down with that in mind. Hypotenuse. Another way to write this, of course, if you want to be a little more precise, you could write hypotenuse squared is equal to side 1 squared plus side 2 squared. But to be very sure, you must always write down the formula to start off, right? Always write down this formula here to start off, whether you write it in this form or this form, and then substitute. So you put in the hypotenuse, which is 5. That's the longest side, or the side opposite to the right angle. That's 5 meters squared, equal to any side. I chose to use the 3 first, 3 squared, which is the same as 1 squared, plus C, which will be the other side, x in this case, unknown. That'll be side 2. And then you now must manipulate this using correct arithmetic procedures. So 5 squared is 25, 3 squared is 9. So I brought the 9 over and changed the sign, or add minus 9 on both sides. So I ended up with 25 minus 9 is equal to x squared. 25 minus 9 is 16. And therefore, x is equal to the square root of 16, which is 4 meters. Now, without doing all of this, right, we could have known the answer.
Yes, sir.
How we would have known the answer, Renat?
So they have the rules, the Pythagorean triangles, 3, 4, 5, 12, 13, 5, 24, 25, 7. Those have those triangles,
Right.
those special triangles, special right angle triangles.
Right. So you may remember me coming to class one day and giving you all a little sheet with about 5 triangles or 6 triangles to learn, right? And this is the most basic, right? 3, 4, 5. There are about 3 or 4 more that you call out there, right? So all this working that I'm doing here, remember in your exam, they're not gonna see all of this. They're not interested in this. They're only looking for you to take the right answer. So time is marks, you know. The more time you have, the more marks you could gather. You could check back over, find errors and all that. So this is the advantage you would have if you follow those instructions. If you learn your Pythagorean triangles and you bounce up a question like this, within 1 second, you know the answer is A, where somebody now has to go through all these steps, right? And A could be any one of the 3 sides in any one of the Pythagorean triangles, okay? And in a multiple choice, they're going to make it easy. They're not going to make it a triangle where you're going to get 0.25 or some kind of craziness, because remember, you don't have a calculator. So they're going to make it one of those Pythagorean triangles, all right? And you're going to have a big advantage there. Okay, number 59. They say in a triangle ABC, angle A is x degrees, and angle B is 2x degrees. What is the size of angle C? So I draw out a triangle here for you, ABC. I put one as A as x, right? This is this, and angle B as 2x. Angle B will be this one, that'll be 2x. Angle C is the unknown one, right? And they want to know what's the size of angle C. So it's easy because you guys know if you add up these three, you must get 180. Quadrilateral is 360, pentagon is 540, and the rest we could work out if they did give us something similar to this, but with a hexagon, you know, and you have to know what's the sum of the internal angles of the hexagon by using the formula 2n minus 4 by 90, where n would be 6 for a hexagon as an example, right? So this particular question could change. You don't have to make it a triangle. You can make it any polygon, and you could do it, all right? So we add up x, 2x, and c, x, 2x, and c, and we know it must be the sum of the internal angles for a triangle, which is 180. And then all we do now is we work it from there. So x and 2x is 3x plus c is 180. So c would be 180, and you bring it over and change the sign, minus 3x, or minus 3x on both sides, still gives you this relationship. So the angle they want is 180 minus 3x degrees, right? 180 minus 3x degrees, right? We could take off the degrees here and just put it like this and put the degrees on the outside here, right? Or you could put the degrees in there. But if you notice how they put the degree sign on the outside, right? So that is what we wanted to do here. And that corresponded to answer D. Okay, and the final one for tonight will be this guy here. It says a boy stands 12 meters from the foot of the building and observes the angle of elevation of the top of the building. The height of the building is approximately. Well, the reason why they say approximately, because remember they didn't give you the measurements from his eyes, right? They give it from the top of his head. So there would be a bit of inaccuracy with the method, but approximately you would get a nice approximation, right? So let's see what we did. If this is 12 here, then the distance from B to the boy's head is going to be 12 meters as well. Okay, if this is 1.6 here, his height, then from the base of the building to B will be 1.6 as well. They are parallel, right? So we now have a nice triangle here where we have 12, we have 40 degrees. And what they're asking us to do is the height of the building. Now the height of the building really is AB plus 1.6, right? From A to B, and then you have to add the 1.6, and that will give us the height of the building. So the first thing we're going to do is work out AB, all right? And then we're going to realize that the answer will be 1.6 plus whatever we got for AB. So if we look at the triangle AB and come across to the boy's head, let's call that C, right? So we're going to look at the triangle ABC. What we realize is that if we want to find AB relative to 40 degrees, that's going to be the opposite side. So let's write down opposite. And we want to find opposite, and we have 12, which is adjacent. We have adjacent. So we ask ourselves, between sine, cosine, and tan, which one is going to connect what we want to find, which is the opposite, to what we have already, the adjacent? And the answer is tan. Tan connects opposite over an adjacent using this relationship. So you write tan theta, or tan 40 then, is going to be equal to opposite. Opposite is AB over adjacent, which is 12. So tan 40 is AB over 12. I put that over 1 and I cross multiply now. So I say tan 40 times 12 is going to be the same thing as equal to AB times 1. Okay, you know, cross multiplication like that. So, or 12 times tan 40 is equal to AB times 1. You could do it anyway, but of course, cross like that. So 12 times tan 40, I wrote it down, is equal to AB times 1. Of course, AB times 1 is AB. So 12 times 40 represents from here to here. And then the height of the building, therefore, we know is 1.6 plus this distance, which is 12 tan 40. So the height of the building will be 1.6 plus AB, which is 12 tan 40 that we just calculated here. And this here is what we see in D. Look at here, 1.6 plus 12 tan 40, which is D. All right? So that brings us to the end of those solutions. All right. So what is really good for you guys is that I'm going to upload this tonight to our YouTube channel, and I'll put the link in the chat. Of course, the YouTube channel is ongoing, and it has any recording that we do is saved there. So even if you miss it, you can go there, and it will be in the highest quality, 720 dpi. So you'll be able to see it very clearly. All right. And I'm always available. I am a WhatsApp away. You could WhatsApp any question that you have. All right. You guys okay? Y'all have any questions before we close off? All right. Good to see you guys here.
So wait, would you be sending another paper?
Yeah. Every week I'm going to be sending you a paper. So this was 2012. I'll send you 2013. And we'll work on it, and we'll do some corrections on it in the next class like this. I tried to have it yesterday, Wednesday, but something came up, an emergency, and I couldn't do it. So I'll try to do it like in between the actual tutorial. So we'll have a next tutorial Saturday, hopefully, if everything goes well. If not, Sunday.
Okay.
Right, but every week we'll be doing at least one multiple choice and together with the tutorials. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, so I'll see you guys. You all enjoy the rest of your evening. And
you too, sir.
right, of course, anybody here? Rena, is Rena
Yes,
still
sir.
here? Rena, don't
Yes.
forget. Did you get your what do you call it? Your slip, not your slip,
Yes.
your email that tells you what your student number is and so.
No, sir.
Right. So Miss sent out a WhatsApp telling
I saw.
everybody.
I
Yeah.
got it, but I haven't. Yeah, I got
Oh, you
it. I saw.
haven't checked it as yet. Okay. So you could either call the ministry or you can go into the ministry to find
So
out,
I
right?
was told you could go into the ministry to get your hard copy of your timetable.
Well, when you go, you will see. I am not sure, right? So first thing you could do is call, and then when I called, they told me you wouldn't get a hard copy. They would just tell you your student number, and you can get a copy of the timetable off their website. I don't know if it changed since that time. That was last week sometime.
Oh, okay, because Naim told me that Anthony got his own.
Okay, by going in,
Yes, sir.
Anthony who McGoran?
Red Anthony, sir.
Right,
Red
as
Anthony.
Anthony McGoran. Okay, right. Yeah, so that's good. So you could go through and see if that is in fact so, right? But the main thing is, the main thing is that you do your due diligence and get your stuff together. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Yes. Yeah.
Number 57, I'm still a bit off. I got that one wrong, and I'm still trying to figure it out.
With number 7.
Number 57, that's the
50
only one I got wrong.
or 57. Okay, let me just review there for you. All right. I realized that you were having a little challenge when I was talking about it. So you want me to go it over?
Yes, please.
All right. So the image of a point P, right? So let us talk about P. Is P the object or the image?
It's not open. It's the, hold on. Hold on, sir. All right. Image. Image of a point P.
Is P the object or the image?
P is the object.
Beautiful. So let's take note that P is the object. So I write an object above it, right? Okay.
Yes,
What is the translation vector in this question?
3, 4.
3, 4. So I'm going to write TV by translation vector. Good? Okay, so we agree and we identify what is the object, what's the translation vector. Okay?
I got it.
You guys know?
Yeah, I mixed up. I took P for the image.
I realize that. That's why I wanted you to make sure that you identify what they give you. Is it the object or is it the image? And by the question, how it's stated, you must realize that P is the object, because they say in the image of something, and you start at the object and you end at the image. So they want want you to find the image. So once you know that as the object and the translation vector, then you put it into the equation. Yeah, put in the equation. Okay?
Yeah. Yes.
So
thank you very much.
You're welcome. So you're very clear with that now?
Very.
Very clear. Okay. All right, you guys. Any other questions?
No.
All right, great. Deshaun, it's good to see you and hear you. Is he still there? Deshaun, are you still there? No, he left. He left already. I haven't seen him or heard him for a little while, so it was good to hear him on the call. All right, you guys. So you have a good evening, and just keep looking out at your WhatsApp because I'll be sending you all the different things relevant to what's going on there, right? And you keep to all your other WhatsApps. Make sure you stay tuned. All right. So God bless, and I'll see you guys.
Good night, sir. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye bye.